Welcome to the Topical Capacity Building component of the History and Overview module. As a reminder, the Topical Capacity Building component is intended to provide more details on one or more topics covered briefly during the live training session. In this session, we will learn about the differences between how entitlement grantees and states administer the CDBG program. The topics we will cover include Program Implementation, Entitlement versus State Regulatory Authority, Administrative versus Technical Assistance Costs, Activity Delivery versus Program Administrative Costs, Flow of CDBG Grant Funds, CDBG Activity Selection, Timely Expenditure of CDBG Funds, and Procurement Requirements. In the live training video, which can be found at the top of this page, we learned that HUD allocates CDBG funds to entitlement grantees and to states. This presentation summarizes the key differences in the way that entitlements and states approach administering the CDBG program and implementing eligible activities. The first key difference is that entitlements may implement their own activities. Entitlements may also provide funding to subrecipients or other public agencies to implement activities as well. In contrast, states may only administer CDBG funds. States cannot implement their own activities. This means that the state's potential partners are limited to non-entitlement units of general local government that apply for funding. The way states and entitlements use the regulations differs as well. Entitlements must follow the definitions provided by HUD at 24 CFR Part 570 and do not have the authority to interpret and apply the statute to their program. States have authority to define the terms and conditions of their program that are not already defined by Title I of the Housing and Community Development Act of 1974 and the CDBG regulations applicable to states at 24 CFR Part 570 Subpart I. The state's definitions must be explicit, reasonable, and not plainly inconsistent with the CDBG statute. This provides states with a greater level of flexibility in designing program activities. The limitation on the use of CDBG funds for administration also functions differently for entitlements and states. Entitlements may spend up to 20% of the grant and program income for a range of administration and planning activities with no matching requirement. In contrast, states may use $100,000 for administration, plus an additional amount of up to 3% of the funds received, including program income, for administration or technical assistance. However, states must match any administrative costs over the first $100,000, dollar for dollar, with non-federal funds. Administrative versus technical assistance costs. Additionally, there is a distinction between administration and technical assistance, whereby costs for technical assistance do not need to be matched. Administration includes the general management, oversight, planning, and coordination of the CDBG program, providing the public with information and opportunities to participate in the decision-making process, fair housing activities, indirect costs, and costs to facilitate housing. Technical assistance includes advice, guidance, and training provided by the state to units of general local government and their subrecipients. States may allow units of general local government to charge administrative costs as well. However, the combined administrative expenditures by the state and its funded units of general local government for administrative costs shall not exceed 20%. For states, planning is an activity that may be undertaken by units of general local government, even if preparing the plan is the only activity and provided that the planned activity meets a CDBG national objective, if that activity was to be funded. The combined amount of administration, technical assistance, and planning activities may not exceed 20% of the grant. Activity delivery costs are those allowable costs incurred for implementing and carrying out eligible CDBG activities. The costs are associated with the specific activity and are not for the overall administration of the CDBG program. CPD Notice 13-07 provides more information differentiating activity delivery costs from program administrative costs. While entitlements may charge reasonable activity delivery costs, states may not charge activity delivery costs because they are not allowed to implement their own activities according to the statute. States may establish policies allowing units of general local government to charge reasonable activity delivery costs. CDBG flow of grant funds. Entitlements do not need to specify a method of distribution in the consolidated plan. Entitlements may keep CDBG funds and implement activities on their own. Entitlements may also select subrecipients through locally defined processes. By contrast, the method of distribution is the state's program design. What the state intends for units of general local government to do with CDBG funds and how units of general local government may access CDBG funding. For example, a state's method of distribution could specify that CDBG funds will be distributed to eligible units of general local government based on a formula, a competitive grant application process, or through other methods such as a regional fair share or a combination of the above methods. For entitlements, determining eligible activities that may be undertaken is relatively simple because the eligible and ineligible activities are defined in the CDBG regulations. The rules for determining eligible CDBG activities for the state CDBG program are broadly defined by the CDBG statute, with certain clarifications prescribed by HUD in the CDBG regulations applicable to states. As a result, states must consider both the statute and the state CDBG regulations that include clarifications for certain activities, and then define the CDBG activities that will be eligible under their program. The state definitions may be codified in state law or policy. States may choose to follow some or all of the entitlement rules for simplicity. The three national objectives are the same for both states and entitlements: activities benefiting low and moderate income, preventing and eliminating slums and blight, and addressing urgent needs. The rules for timely expenditure of CDBG funds are different for entitlements than for states. At a point in time that is 60 days prior to the end of the program year, entitlement jurisdictions may not have more than 1.5 times their current CDBG allocation available to spend. This amount includes grant funds from any year, plus funds in the local account and program income on hand, including revolving loan fund balances on hand. For states, CDBG funds must be obligated to units of general local government within 15 months of the date of the grant agreement between HUD and the state. There are no timetables specified for program income and revolving loan funds. However, HUD expects these funds to be expended expeditiously and spent before grant funds are drawn. Another key difference between entitlements and states in the administration and implementation of the CDBG program is the procurement requirements in the Uniform Administrative Requirements. Units of general local government, entitlements, and subrecipients must follow their own documented procurement procedures which reflect applicable state and local regulations, provided that those state and local regulations conform to the Uniform Administrative Requirements. For the state itself, when procuring property and services using CDBG funds, the state must follow the same policies and procedures it uses for procurements from its non-federal funds. Thank you for watching the Topical Capacity Building component of the History and Overview module. We learned the differences between how entitlement grantees and states administer the CDBG program and select partners. Please proceed to the Reinforce component of this module for a brief quiz to test your knowledge.